Well, I think any country would be vulnerable if you had a neighbor that had missiles, drones, and was willing to indiscriminately attack, but also was not willing to come to a political resolution. So I don't think the UAE is more vulnerable than anybody else in the region. On the contrary, Abu Dhabi has always felt really very safe and continues to feel safe. But this attack is concerning because it is a step up in the instability in the region at large. I mean, we've had drone attacks on the Iraqi prime minister's house just a few weeks ago. We've had attacks on Aramco and Abqaiq the year before last. And so you've seen an escalation where you have these attacks that put a question mark on all of these proxies that exist in the region that don't really care much for either diplomacy or international law.
Mina, you make a great point because deterring these attacks, particularly drone attacks, is becoming increasingly more complex. And also, until now, the UAE has really avoided these major, cross-border Houthi attacks. Saudi Arabia has traditionally been the target, but it's quite rare to see a strike in the UAE. In your view, Mina, what needs to happen now at a policy level to perhaps reduce the threat of future attacks and to avoid military escalation in the region?
Well, the designation of the Houthis as a terrorist organization is an immediate step that the American administration can take to show that it is serious about tackling this issue. But also, in terms of policy, there needs to be more support to the UN process that's trying to get this off the ground. So far, the Houthis have used diplomatic efforts as a stalling tactic. They know that at the moment they have more power than they would if there was actually a political resolution, because they have an outsized role in Yemen than either what they represent in terms of people or actually their popularity amongst the Yemeni people themselves. And so you need to support the UN resolution to say, okay, this cannot continue. Furthermore, there needs to be pressure on their supporters. I mean, their backers, Tehran, are continuing to support them openly and also haven't really had much pressure on them as the Vienna talks continue on the nuclear agenda. The nuclear file still stays prominent.
And Mina, very quickly, the Iraq-Turkey pipeline is now reopened after an explosion earlier on in this week. Are we any closer to understanding exactly what's happened here?
Well, the authorities, both in Turkey and Iraq, have said that this was not sabotage, that this was a technical fault. However, having said that, that pipeline has been attacked time and again, and there is a lot of activity at the moment, military activity, particularly because the Turks continue to target elements that they say are PKK, the group that the Turks designate as a terrorist organization. There's been a lot of activity there also from the Iraqi military saying that they're weeding out different militants. But the official line so far has been that this was not sabotage. It has, of course, had a knock-on effect on oil prices, which continue to rise. We've seen an incredible spike in the last 4 weeks of oil prices because of all these regional dynamics and, of course, the continued demand on oil.